Hello everyone, it's Rachawl. I actually haven't recorded a video in over a week because I've been battling this insane cold that I got, and then after that I actually fell down the stairs and broke my toe, so that was really fun. Thankfully the cold was not COVID. I did get a COVID test. Actually got two and they were both negative, so I'm really thankful for that, but this cold was gnarly. It was like I couldn't get out of bed, I had a fever, muscle aches, fatigue. I still have a hard time talking and breathing a little bit normally, and I do have a lingering cough as well, but I figured I'd get on here and film a video because there's one that I feel like is really relevant to what's been going on in my life right now, and breaking my toe kind of brought to light a little bit more of that. So in this video, we'll be talking about chronic pain and kind of differentiating it from acute pain and something like this where you break your toe and the pain goes away versus chronic pain where it lasts a lifetime. So let's get right into it. So I apologize in advance. My voice is not as great as it could be. I have tried a few things to clear it, but I think just lingering sickness is gonna make this inevitable. So I fell down the stairs, broke my toe. One thing about my toe break was, I immediately realized it was broken. I've never broken a bone before, so the fact that I knew it was broken the moment that it broke was kind of interesting to me. I remember the pain was really intense, and I was like, holy crap. How, hold on, let's get my tools together. How do I deal with my back pain? How do I deal with these other pains that I have? And so I started getting my toolbox out, my mental toolbox, and how to deal with these things. And then I realized something. This is not chronic pain. This is acute pain. This is something that will go away. I wasn't able to go to the ER that night for crazy amount of reasons, such as I thought I had COVID and they wouldn't let me to go into the ER anyway. Yeah, I just kind of had to realize this is acute pain and this will go away. I actually felt 10 times better immediately after that because I've been dealing with chronic pain for over a year now, and that is the worst thing to deal with. So the fact that I was able to go to sleep that night, yes, I was in a ton of pain, woke up the next morning hobbling around trying to figure out a way to walk without seeing a doctor yet. Deep down, it was so comforting knowing that this pain was going to go away and that it wasn't going to linger like my back pain does. So I just figured this was really relevant when I was planning this chronic pain video. I was like, how can I differentiate for people who don't deal with chronic pain what it's like to have chronic pain versus little aches and pains that you get throughout your life, such as breaking bones or dealing with other types of injuries. And I guess the breaking it down really simple is that chronic pain doesn't go away like a broken toe will. So chronic pain will always be there, and that's really the best way to differentiate it. This video is going to be a long one. If anyone deals with chronic pain, you'll understand why. It's a very complicated subject. It's not something that you can put up on a board and break it down into simple parts and explain why everything's happening. When you break your toe, you get to look at that x-ray and determine, okay, it's fractured. Here's where the fracture is. Here's how long it's going to heal, and then here's the tools to help you heal it, and you will be able to go back and live a normal life. I think chronic pain is a term that we hear so often nowadays. I think it can be diluted a lot. I think sometimes people use it incorrectly. They can cause confusion for people that do suffer with chronic pain for real. I remember when I was a teenager, probably 11 or 12, I did start hearing about chronic back pain or chronic knee pain, like athletes at my school that complained about it and they wore compression pants and things like that. I remember thinking, okay, well, isn't chronic pain just something that they made up, or is it something that they're over exaggerating? And I really didn't have an answer to any of that. I never really asked anybody. And I personally didn't know anybody at that time that was suffering from chronic pain. So if you don't really know anybody that suffers from it, you're not going to ask the questions. And if you're not teaching about it in school, then you're not going to learn about it. I really did believe that these people were not being truthful about the pain that they were experiencing. I thought that they were making it up for attention, especially in high school. There's so much of that. I just couldn't fathom and I couldn't wrap my head around always having pain since it's something I'd never experienced before. Like I said, I've never even broken a bone until now. I just didn't understand what pain was and why people were experiencing it consistently. Another thing that I thought was maybe they weren't trying hard enough to heal themselves. Maybe they weren't listening to their doctors and they weren't doing the exercises that maybe they were being told to do. So that was another big thing that I think a lot of people think even now, but that was a big thing for me back then. I think it's natural for the human experience for us to empathize with people when we've never been through something like this before. So when it comes to death or loss of a loved one, if we've never experienced that close loss of a loved one, it's really difficult for us to empathize with someone who has. It's just something that you have to go through to really understand. So I wasn't the only one, right, that's uninformed with what chronic pain is and what it entails. There are so many people out there that are also, and even into their adult years and many years on. They just never have experienced pain or chronic pain in their life, and therefore they just don't believe it's real, or they believe that people are making it 10 times worse than it really is. I will say it's extremely hard to compact chronic pain into one short video. It could take days to explain really the ins and outs of it, but I will do my best to give it justice in this video, not only because I suffer from it, but from so many people I know where it has destroyed their lives. And so I want to make sure that I'm not taking it lightly, but at the same time, it needs to be condensed enough for people to truly be able to wrap their head around it. So let's talk about the origins of pain and when we started discovering what pain was. It started way back in the 1600s. Pain was actually conceptualized by saying that it starts at one point in the body and travels up to the brain where it's processed in just one spot. It left out the mental and social aspects of pain. Throughout the next few decades, the church, many different religions, started actually downplaying what pain really was. They started saying that it was a punishment for sins, whether it was indirect or direct. Their solution and the only escape from pain was to get forgiveness from God. And if the pain didn't go away, well, you just weren't being sincere enough. Then, as the 1900s rolled in, we finally began to make that connection between spiritual, physical, mental, and social pain. Along with this concept that pain is real and the effects that it had on people, pain medicines began making their way up onto the priority list. Morphine and chloroform were very popular during the Civil War and were actually used to treat Civil War soldiers in the late 1800s. Before this, alcohol was actually the main pain reliever, aka liver destroyer. And truly, morphine wasn't that great for our livers either, but we didn't need to use nearly as much of it to get the pain relief that we needed with alcohol. The medication industry really blew up during this period of war. Many say that the chronic pain that was experienced after the Civil War is what led to the abuse of morphine and actually eventually led to the abuse of heroin in the 1920s. Many doctors and other healthcare professionals in the early 1900s were actually very against pharmaceutical intervention, such as medications. But after the injured soldiers of World War II returned, they felt it was necessary to give them as much comfortable pain relief as possible. War was actually the only reason that doctors started to notice the connection between social, physical, and psychological pain. So without war, we may never have made those connections. Now that we've covered the modern history of pain, let's discuss what the definition of chronic pain is and what differentiates it from acute pain. Chronic pain is a pain that is described that lasts longer than 3 months and that it's usually the same pain consistently. 20 to 30% of the US population suffers from regional pain, meaning usually in one spot, such as the knee or the back, and 15% of our population suffers from all over pain. Many times, people with one chronic condition are more likely to develop other chronic conditions. Something that would constitute as chronic pain could be chronic headaches or migraines, irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, TMJ, fibromyalgia, joint pain, endometriosis, and more. Some people even develop chronic pain after a surgery or an accident, such as if they broke a bone or had a TBI, a traumatic brain injury. So let's talk about how someone with chronic pain deals with the pain that they feel. How come someone with chronic pain can actually feel okay today, but then begin suffering again tomorrow? How can someone who suffers multiple car accidents and multiple broken bones not suffer from chronic pain? And are these people who are suffering faking it? These are the big questions that pop up when chronic pain is introduced. Let's talk about all of them. So how does someone with chronic pain feel? This is a really tricky question to answer. I actually created a survey to ask people about their types of chronic pain and how it affects them every single day. You'd be surprised at how many different types of chronic pain ended up in this survey. Unlike other surveys, I only got 25 responses for this one. I realized that such a small percent of the population suffers with chronic pain, so I understand why instead of hundreds of responses like I normally get, I only got 25. So bear with me on this. It's not a very accurate representation of our US population. I would need thousands of responses to get that amount. But in the small group of people that I did ask, these are the answers that I got. So most of the people who took my survey were between the ages of 26 and 34. The next group was 35 to 46. And the next biggest group was 19 to 25. The next question was, what chronic illnesses do you suffer from? The biggest one on here was migraines and headaches, which makes sense. Statistically, that is one of the biggest chronic pain dealers out there. The next biggest one was fibromyalgia, another really common and popular chronic pain disorder. Back pain was the third biggest one. I suffer from that as well. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, EDS, another huge one. Arthritis and osteoarthritis. This is actually interesting because you think of arthritis in older people, but as you can see, our age groups, 26 to 34 is most of them, and we had 7 people say arthritis and osteoarthritis. It goes to show that you don't have to be old to have arthritis and osteoarthritis. A bunch of other responses, such as mystery leg pain, CFS, which is chronic fatigue syndrome, Tourette's syndrome, connective tissue disorders, joint pain, undiagnosed. This is a really common thing when it comes to chronic pain, is that undiagnosed. Why does it hurt? We don't know. The next question was, on a scale from 1 to 10, how bad is your pain on a day-to-day basis? The most common one was a 6, level 6, meaning this is really uncomfortable. It is going to prevent me from doing daily activities. So a level 6 is pretty high, especially to have every single day. Seems like the most common response here was between a 5 and a 6. The next question was, how many days do you have pain during the week on average? The most common response here was 7 days a week. These people are suffering every single day. The next question was, how long have you dealt with chronic pain? The biggest response here was 5+ years. This is actually really just makes me sad. Like I said again, the age group that we're looking at mostly is between 20 and 30 and mid-30s. So the fact that these people have been suffering for over 5 years and they're only in their 30s is just really disturbing to me. I'm in my mid-20s, so I know what I have to look forward to, but it's still something that really gets to me. What does your main pain feel like? This is me just asking them, what's your main complaint? With all of your symptoms, what is the biggest pain that you feel? Most popular response was aching. I definitely suffer from that in my back pain. It's more of an aching pain. It's not stabbing or sharp. It can be, but the most common pain that I have is the aching. So I could see how that became the most popular answer here. The next one is stabbing. Stabbing is not fun. It does feel like someone's actually stabbing you, but that seems to be the second most big complaint that people have. Burning is the third one, and burning is not fun either. How consistent is your pain? Now this is different than the one asking how many days a week are they suffering from pain, because this is breaking it down into a more day-to-day basis. The largest answer here was it comes and goes, but there's more time spent in pain than without. Not fun, but it does come and go, but it is taking up most of their day. The second biggest answer was all of the time, but it can be managed with meds. And that's a good thing, because that means it is there all the time, but these people are finding relief with pain medication. And the third biggest one was all of the time, it never stops, even with medication, which is, again, really frustrating and very disappointing to find. People are suffering and pain medication is not helping them. The next question is, does anything help with your pain? Obviously, there's the people out there that say pain medication doesn't work for them. So this is probably for the people that have found things that work for them. The biggest answer was resting. We always hear people say, I'm taking a day off work. My doctor told me to rest. We think that maybe that's unnecessary and maybe these people need to go out and exercise or stretch or do something. But resting is the number one answer, and in statistically as well, resting is the best way to heal your body and prevent that pain from getting worse in most cases and in most illnesses. The second biggest one was hot pack. I love heating pads, live off of them. I will sleep on them sometimes even if it's hot to get my back pain to stop being so awful. Prescription painkillers is the next biggest one. Makes sense. Stopping those pain receptors in your body can really help take that pain away. Ice pack is on there, shower, bath, like a hot shower, hot bath as well, stretching. Some people said nothing helps. Heated electric blanket, reducing stress, that's another big one. The next question is, what triggers your pain, if you know? Some people didn't know, so and like me, I really don't know either, so I was actually interested to see these answers. The biggest answer was overdoing it at home or work. So going into work when you're not feeling great and overdoing it. That is one of the biggest causes for our pain to flare up. The next biggest two were stress or illness. We know that stress can change the way that our body reacts chemically. Getting more pain when you're stressed makes sense. Illness, another thing, your immune system is busy fighting something else. Sometimes it can flare up those immune responses when people have autoimmune disorders, and it can attack their joints or it can attack other healthy parts of their body and the healthy tissue. Someone said weather, humidity, pressure, working out, being hot, being cold. The next question is, how many supplements or medications have you tried that did not work for you? This one was surprising. I didn't expect this many people to answer. The biggest answer here was 11 plus. They have tried 11 plus supplements to try and help, or medications to help with their pain. The next biggest answer was 3 to 5. That's what I answered. I've tried a bunch of them, but not 11 plus. Haven't gotten to that point yet, but there is a point, I think, with pain where you reach that desperate level, like, I will do anything to get this pain to go away. Are you able to work and make money? Most people said no. I fall in that category sometimes. Sometimes I can work, sometimes I can't. I fell into the sometimes category. Obviously, that was the next biggest one. 24% of people said yes, they can. And there was a little answer here that I found interesting is I have no choice. I do work full time. I spend a lot of time crying before and after work and have no social life as all of my free time is used to recover from working. This is a really, really common response for people that suffer with chronic illness and still have to maintain a job. Obviously, in the US, we have to work to pay our rent, to buy groceries. It's hard, and having a chronic illness sometimes is not a good enough excuse for your employer to let you take days off. And sometimes disability in the US will not approve you for long-term disability depending on some of your illnesses, and you have to actually hire a lawyer to come fight your case for you. So I could see how working for a living is, you don't have a choice. The US makes it so hard for people with chronic illness to live a normal life. What does your support system look like when it comes to your pain? This was a question that I was surprised by as well. Most people said, I have a few people who care, but they rarely check in. This is really saddening. This is very disappointing. This is how I feel sometimes. I do have family members that are supportive. I have people in my immediate family that are supportive, and I have a few friends that are supportive as well. But do they check in? Not all the time. I think that I do a pretty good job at handling things on my own, and if I did need help, I would reach out. But rarely do they just check in to see how I'm feeling or anything like that. It's pretty normal. People have their own lives. People are so focused on their own lives, just like we are, that sometimes we forget to do that reaching out. So if you know someone in your life that has chronic illness and you haven't reached out in a while, just try it. It will make their day, I promise. The next biggest answer for that one was I have a few people who care and they check in regularly. These people are so lucky. They do have a few people, not many, but just a few people does make such a huge difference for our healing process and for our dealing with our chronic illness. Do you see a therapist for your emotional health? Most people for this one said yes, always. So that's great. I'm glad these people are getting the therapy that they need for their chronic pain because there are such things as chronic pain therapists, and I see one. So yeah, it's necessary. The next biggest answer was no, but I used to. So those people did at one point get therapy for their chronic pain or chronic illness. And the last question was, do you also deal with depression, BPD, anxiety, or any other type of mental illness? And remember, BPD is not bipolar disorder, but that is also an issue as well. BPD is borderline personality disorder. Most people said yes, a few. So most people actually deal with, on top of chronic illness, they are dealing with mental illness, which is insane to me, but it makes sense. The way that our bodies are treating us makes us unstable sometimes. Yeah, it seems like most people on here are also dealing with a mental illness at the same time as their chronic illness. So I feel you. I'm right there with you. That's why we're going to therapy. We're trying to get a handle on our bodies. It's funny, I'm sitting here talking about chronic illness and chronic pain, and I'm trying out a new seating position here, and my back is just killing me. So we're going to try and wrap this up here. So after reading through the data and seeing how people answered, what we can really take from this is that not everybody experiences their chronic illness or chronic pain the same way. What's really important about this information that you just learned is that one person can say they suffer from chronic illness and it can be completely different from how another person does. You might have a completely different set of symptoms, different levels of pain, how often they suffer from chronic pain or symptoms. Like I said, I deal with chronic pain in a very random way. I could go 3 to 4 days feeling pretty normal and then have 2 weeks of just insane pain, not being able to work at all. I never can know when it's going to happen, but some people do get triggers and they know when it's going to happen. But not everybody's the same. Another issue with people suffering from chronic pain and chronic illness is that name itself, chronic pain, is such a vague way to explain what they're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. We tend to downplay most people who say they suffer from chronic pain because maybe we know someone in our life, our sister or our cousin, that also has chronic pain, but they only suffer 1 or 2 days out of the week. So it's easier for us to make that connection if we meet someone that's suffering from chronic illness. We make that connection like, oh, my sister only suffers from it twice a week, so why is this girl unable to come to work? We just can't wrap our heads around it. Some people with chronic illness and chronic pain are very lucky to be able to get out of bed every single day. If you are a healthy and able person, we think about doing laundry. It's a chore, right? It's not something we enjoy doing. But with someone with chronic pain or chronic illness, laundry can become almost impossible. I remember in the beginning of my back pain days, carrying the laundry basket was impossible. The pain that it sent me into was unbearable, and I avoided doing laundry for 2 to 3 weeks because I knew of the pain that it was going to cause. I remember at one point I couldn't drive for a while. That was very frustrating and very isolating. The simple things that I needed to do, such as grocery shopping or going to a doctor's appointment, became nearly impossible unless I had somebody to drive me. So the simple tasks that we take for granted right now, being able to drive to the grocery store, being able to carry our laundry basket, those are things that people with chronic illness and chronic pain, they don't get every single day. If laundry is something that you don't even have to think twice about, yeah, it's annoying, but you could do it if you needed to, right? You could walk up there, if you go upstairs or downstairs, carry the laundry basket. You could go in your car right now and drive to where you need to go. You don't realize how able-bodied you truly are. So I think this piece of information is really important for people who are in a position such as a manager or a boss, and you have an employee that calls in sick once a week, twice a week, maybe all of the time, and they have told you maybe very low-key that they might have a chronic illness, or maybe they've told you straight up that they suffer from migraines or other types of chronic illness and chronic pain. Take a second when they call in sick and remember that the things that you find easy to do, such as getting up and going to work in the morning, are nearly impossible for some people. Just treat people with kindness. You never know what they're going through at home. You never know what they're going through with their bodies. And if people with chronic pain could choose a surgery or some sort of elective medication to fix their issues, they would in a heartbeat. Nobody wants to do this for attention. This is the last thing that someone would want to do for attention, because chronic pain, when you're home alone, it's there with you still. There's nobody there to get attention from when you're in bed for 2 weeks. As much as I want to breeze over the topic of chronic pain, I think it's important to explain the physiological part of it and how it actually affects us and how it works. How come some people get chronic pain and others don't? Let's get into it. So if we take a look at a brain, it's a pink, mushy, ugly, disgusting looking thing, okay? But I like to imagine our brain as like a little open field, a big open field. Every time that you have a thought or you move your arm, the signals will take a certain path. Now, if you've never done that movement before, the field is completely bare. There's no fences, there's no trails, there's no roads, it's just grass. So the first time you make that movement, the first time you have that thought, it goes through the grass and creates a trail. Now, once you start taking that path enough, it becomes a dirt trail, right? Little tiny trail, but you can see it, you can follow it easier. And this is what happens when we develop muscle memory. So things that you found hard at one point, like driving, we developed those muscle memory. Now that trail has become a freaking interstate because we do it all of the time. So we don't even have to think twice about it. And that's why sometimes you'll get home and you won't remember how you got there, because our muscles took over, our memory in our brain took over, it knows what to do. Now, if you do the same movement, such as lifting your arm up, but then you twist it outward, that is going to follow that path first and then break off near the end. It's going to create a new path. This is something that we'll see too if you do something every day, such as a job or some activity, and then you take a few months off, and then you go to do it again. And you're worried, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, what if I forgot? And you pick it up like you never left off. That's muscle memory, and that's your brain following that path that you built for it. Now, these pathways can be great for developing new skills, languages, things like that. But these pathways are also developed when we experience pain. When we injure ourselves, that field, there's a path that begins. We don't like to let that pathway get too well traveled because we don't want to develop a road there. We'd like that pathway to disappear into the grass again. And so removing that pain as quickly as possible, dealing with that pain as quickly as possible is very important in the beginning of an injury because we want to keep that path as less traveled as possible. As your pain and inflammation disappear, the path will slowly disappear as well in a normal functioning brain. But some people's brain, for reasons we don't understand, will decide, no, I'm going to keep going down that path because I like it. Even if there's no longer an injury, even if there's no longer inflammation, the brain will continue to send those pain signals down that path. This is why many people turn to Tylenol or other prescription pain medications when they suffer from chronic pain, because this is truly the only way to stop it. Tylenol and other painkillers prevent our brain from receiving pain signals. This is obviously a temporary fix because as they wear off, our brain will continue to send those signals. This is actually a great explanation as to why PTSD happens as well. Since we experienced that one moment of fear or that extended period of fear, our brain created that pathway. And the more it's traveled, the bigger it gets and the easier it is for our brain to go there. Also suffering from PTSD myself, I can envision this very easily, and it makes sense why the chronic pain is there as well. This is why so many people who suffer from one chronic illness or one mental illness also suffer from other ones, because the way that our brains are wired, it just doesn't know how to control itself. It's ridiculous. It's a silly brain. It's the way that it's wired. Sometimes there is just no fixing it. So now that you kind of understand how brain pathways work, you can start to understand how people may not be faking the chronic pain that they've been experiencing. Just because you don't suffer from pain does not mean that other people don't. And if you are one of those people that suffer from chronic pain, you can understand why maybe some people don't understand you. Suffering from chronic pain is not something that anybody would want to fake. There is no glory in it. Disability is impossible to get. Having no money is not a fun experience. And being treated like you're worthless by managers or other people around you, your associates and your coworkers, is extremely painful and embarrassing. We are human. Sometimes we just have stupid brains. And deep down, we want to be healed. We want this to go away. We have tried every freaking miracle drug on the market. Some people have, like I said, have tried 11 plus. And that isn't even including ones that we can't afford. We want to try some, but we just can't afford it. We try to lose weight. Everybody that I know has. We try the gluten-free diets. We try the fad diets. We try the exercise. We try the stretching. We try the physical therapy. Many times, insurance requires you to do physical therapy before they'll approve an MRI or a certain medication. The best thing you can do in these situations is take somebody's word for it. If they say they're having a high pain day, just accept that. Treat them like anybody else who's having a bad day. Let them be. You can always ask how you could help them. Most of the times, there's really nothing you can do, but just asking sometimes can help them feel a little bit better. Sometimes I would actually prefer to go into work with a little bit of pain versus stay at home and deal with it. Sometimes going in can distract me from the pain that I'm experiencing. So being open and honest with my managers is so much more comforting because they know that I'm dealing with pain. And so they can tweak my shift a little bit to make it a little bit more tolerable. But some people truly prefer to stay at home, use their tools, and rest, even if their pain is low. Maybe they know that it's going to trigger more pain if they go into work today. Well, we've come to the end of this video. I know that this video is long and there's a lot of moving pieces to it, but chronic pain and chronic illness are that way. There's tons of moving pieces. There's tons of information that you have to understand. And there's that piece of empathy that you must have to truly understand it and truly begin to wrap your head around what people suffer from every single day. I hope that I did this topic justice. I suffer from it as well, so I did my best to really put it out there for people who don't have chronic illness and also the people that do suffer from it. The people that do suffer from it are probably already like, we know this, we get it, we got it, we deal with this every day, we don't need to be reiterated, but I think it's important to watch this video, and maybe you don't understand how the pathways work, and maybe you've just been told your whole life that they don't know what's causing this. Well, maybe this can give you a little bit of information to sleep better tonight, knowing, okay, it's not me, I'm not doing anything wrong, it's just the way that my brain is processing pain. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you learned something. Next time you see me, I'll probably have a haircut. My hair won't be quite as long as this anymore because it's just getting out of hand. So with chronic illness, sometimes having shorter hair is the better way to go, especially when you can't spend too much time in the shower, especially on a broken toe, when you can't stand in the shower for very long without having some pain happening. So thanks for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe so you can see all the future content that I put out. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.